I'm back with news from around the world, 2 brand new segments, and of course, a virtual trip to my collegiate hometown. All this and more coming up next. The QiRanger Podcast starts now. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is the QiRanger Podcast, starting off season number 3. Now, if you're brand new to the video podcast coming out on the QiRanger channel, welcome. For the past year, I've been doing a podcast. It's been over on QiRanger.com, and starting halfway through season 2 in the spring, I put it up over on the QiRanger vlog channel. But now, the permanent home of the QiRanger Podcast video side will be on the main channel. You, of course, can always download the audio component of the podcast at QiRanger.com or in iTunes. But I gotta say, I am jazzed to be back. It is so cool, and I have a lot of things to go over. Now, number 1, I want to take a few minutes to talk about United States politics, because that's where I was on vacation, and I gotta say, a lot of really interesting things came about during that time. Now, this past week, most recently was, of course, Representative Aiken from Missouri, who came out in a press meeting, a press interview, saying that women cannot become pregnant if they are, quote unquote, victims of legitimate rape. And I have to say, dude, where are you pulling that out of? Aiken says he spoke to doctors who said that, well, if a woman is legitimately raped, they have a mechanism to shut that down. No, rape is violent. Rape is incredibly violent and destructive, not only to those it physically happens to, but also their friends and their family. It is a crime, and there is never any kind of discussion whether it is legitimate or illegitimate. Rape is rape. It's a violent crime against the person it is being committed to. And for you to come out and say something like that, it just shows you how stupid you are. And I think a lot of politicians who are calling for you to step down from the race are absolutely correct in doing so. You have no business holding office. And I really think that Clara McCaskill, your Democratic running opponent in Missouri, only wants you to stay in the race because she knows that she has a better chance of being elected with you still on the ballot. That's why she wants you to stay in the race. Not because she wants you to take a stand against for what you believe in, but because she wants an easy win. And that's why she wants you in there. I was completely blown away when I heard about this, and I applaud everyone who has come out in support for women's reproductive rights, and I am a firm believer in women's reproductive rights. Aiken, you need to go away. You need to go away. Also, making its way through the American legislative system in, I believe it's in the House right now, the MAP 21 bill. Now, if you haven't heard about this, I'm not surprised. It is in the United States, and essentially it is a mechanism for the United States government to take away your passport. Now, before you freak out, here's the deal. If you owe back taxes in excess of $50,000 US, the IRS can then petition the State Department to revoke your passport and prevent you from leaving the United States. There are mechanisms in place so that if you have, basically the IRS needs to have already filed a lien, filed all these documents to collect the funds from you, and you haven't paid. If you're in the process of disputing the back taxes, if you're on a payment plan, if you're going away for an emergency or humanitarian reasons, you can still travel. But a lot of people think that this is illegal. And unfortunately, courts have actually sided with government on this, that if there is a legitimate flight risk, they can revoke that. And in some states, because of alimony and other child support type payments that haven't been made, they've revoked state documents. So it seems to be meeting the due process because it does protect the individual in terms that the IRS has to jump through a certain number of hoops, and if you dispute or are making payments, you have your passport back. But I still think it's quite alarming that Republicans are pushing this through Congress. And that, to me, is a sign of big government. And Republicans are, of course, the party that wants smaller government. And especially since Mitt Romney, who makes a boatload of money, hardly pays any taxes. So I wonder if it ever comes to light, if he ever does release his tax documents, if it comes out that, oh, maybe he owes more than $50,000 US. So anyway, Two big stories from the United States that just recently came out this week that I wanted to share with you. I think that, again, Aiken, what are you doing in politics? What are you doing on the science committee? Really? You have no business being there. All right, jumping into news here in Korea and specifically the QiRanger news. Yes, I am back. I am ready for action. There won't be any new videos on the QiRanger channel this week. They'll start back up in September. But look for stuff over on the vlog channel. And I'm actually going to try a little something new this season, this semester, if you will, to help challenge me a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is, of course, the podcast on Sundays. And Tuesdays is going to be the big video day. What I'm going to do is choose a topic, and that topic will be, fairly large and have a lot of different facets to it. And over the course of 1 month, 4 weeks, explore that topic. And every Tuesday, there'll be a new part of that topic released. So essentially, it'll be one show over the course of 4 weeks, with each segment airing a week apart. And I want to do that because it'll be more challenging for me to come up with some deeper topics, to work on flow. And I think it'll be just a lot of fun to look at some different aspects of life, of travel, things in Korea, and weave them together. On Friday, there'll be another video, maybe some food videos, some life in Korea videos, just a lot of fun stuff, which also brings me to a new segment that will be beginning to air in October that I need your help with. Yes, I need your help. And that segment is going to be the QiRanger scavenger hunt. Now, what I'm looking to do is, for the viewers, for the listeners, for anyone who wants to participate, to send me tasks or items, and my job will be to select 3 to 5 of these items, tasks, and to have essentially a day to complete them all or to find them all in the Seoul area. I'm actually really excited about this and hope really get a good list and some obscure things as well to make it quite challenging. And the video will essentially be me going through Seoul and trying to beat the clock and to find all these items as well. And to complete the task, I'll either need to take video or a picture or to purchase the item, eat the item, whatever. I'm hoping to have a lot of fun with it. I think it'll be a blast, and I hope you'll participate. Now, to send me an item or a task, you can go over to the Facebook page, facebook.com/QiRanger Adventures, or tweet it to me at QiRanger. You can mail it to me at podcast@QiRanger.com. Just send me your suggestions. I'll make a list, and in October, we'll do it. It should be a lot of fun. Moving on, let's talk about the Olympics, something that I really enjoyed this past summer. For the last 2 Olympic Games, both the Vancouver Games and the Beijing Games, I was here in Korea and had glorious coverage with the Korean broadcasters. I think it was SBS that carried the games, just like the World Cup. The coverage was great. It was live. It was fantastic. I remember in 2008 watching Korea win the baseball gold medal. It was fantastic. I was with a lot of friends, jumped up and shouted. It was fantastic. Glorious. I remember sitting in my office towel for the Vancouver Games and watching the U.S. hockey team. Brilliant coverage. It was fantastic. Loved it. Even though some of the language barriers were there, still loved it. Being in the United States for the NBC coverage, hated it. Absolutely hated it. First off, there are all of these different channels you had to go through. And some of them were live, some of them were pre-recorded. And just the commentary in general was really piss poor on NBC. It was just awful. Really hated it. The games themselves were fantastic. I enjoyed the breadth of coverage that NBC offered. But again, one of my main criticisms of the NBC coverages were that they just really focused on Americans. And I think I saw one tweet or one news article out there that said, if you were just watching the NBC coverage, you would think that this was an American event. So much emphasis was placed on the American athletes that a lot of times the scope of the games was largely absent. And I think that is a fair criticism. NBC really needs to do a better job of showcasing the athletes, the athletic competition, and the games themselves, not just the key Americans who are participating in the event. NBC has come out and said that they acknowledge some of the criticisms, and really, for the next games, they need to do it live. This is 2012. Every other country, well, I shouldn't say every other country, most major broadcast outlets showcase the game live. So to do this stupid pre-record and show it in prime time, the big events, is stupid. So show it live. People here in Korea, we rearrange our day to watch these sporting events. During the World Cup, I woke up at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning to watch a game in South Africa. When Korea played in the bronze medal match against Japan, people were out, starting to go to, say, City Hall at 10 o'clock at night to watch a game at 3 o'clock in the morning. If you're passionate about the games, you will DVR it or watch it live if it's that important to you. It shouldn't be up to the broadcaster to determine what games are viewed when. So next time, do it. Also, get some better broadcasters. My God, some of the commentators were just stupid. I tweeted out there that maybe I should watch a feed and just do the commentary myself because I can do a better job. But that also presents a problem because if you're on the East Coast watching the East Coast feed, it's going to be a different event than what I'm seeing over on the Pacific Coast. So again, NBC, pull your head out and do a better job. I really hope that either ABC or Disney gets the next game for Rio. Those two entities are bidding for the 2016 games, and I am hopeful that someone besides NBC gets to broadcast the games. Now, talking about the Olympics, I think I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the South Korean-Japan bronze medal match, in which Korea won. It was a very riveting victory. I remember sitting on the couch, and when Korea scored that first goal, I just shouted, "Yes!" And Joe was in a different room, and she goes, what? And I said, Korea scored. Anyway, I was rooting for Korea. It's my home away from home. I was supporting my team. But at the end of the game, one of the Korean players went into the stands and got a doctor is ours sign and was chastised by the IOC, was stripped of his bronze medal, and has created a lot of controversy. Now, along with that, President Lee Myung-bak went to Dokdo. Japan was furious about that, withdrew their embassy staff, and it's really agitated a lot of people here in the region because you really need Korea and Japan to work together as it pertains to both China and North Korea. It's stupid to have this diplomatic row over such an insignificant event. But let's tackle Dokdo and let's tackle the IOC things differently. So let's go back to the Olympics. Now, the Olympics are supposed to be an apolitical event. Now, that's not really true, since if you look at how the Olympics are awarded, they typically are given to countries that have money and support the political agendas of the IOC. But a statement like that that was done for Dokdo wasn't the first one. Now let's go back to one of the most famous political statements. 1968, Mexico, where Smith and Carlos from the United States, both African Americans, bowed their head, lifted their fist in a Black Power salute. Australian Newman was also there, silver medalist. He wore a human rights badge on his uniform to also show solidarity. Now, this was very much a political statement. The IOC came down and said no, and these two athletes, the Americans, were ultimately banned from the games, kicked out of the Olympic Village, and sent back home where they were ostracized and really had to pay a huge social price for doing that statement. But since they were already wearing their medals, they got to keep them. Now, this particular statement was also, I think, in bad form. He shouldn't have done this. But I think the correct move would have been to award the bronze medal and then kick him out. I think what makes it even more tense was because it's really Korea and Japan at that game, which really heightens the matter even more. But I do think that the Olympics is for sport. It's for competition. It's not for political statements. And both the Black Power statement in 1968, while I'm a huge advocate of human rights, I think that was the wrong place for it. And I think that the Dokdo, or his hour sign in the Olympics this past summer, was the wrong place for it. So let's talk about Dokdo now and the whole issue. Korea says it's historically theirs. Japan says it's historically theirs. They refer to the islets as Takashima. And both countries just go back and forth over it. And it's just a huge, huge bump in the road to fully normalized relations between the two countries. And as much as the two countries want to go back and talk about historic evidence that the islets are respectively theirs, what it really comes down to is that sitting beneath these islets is a huge deposit of natural gas. And that's what it's really all about. Koreans want to find a way to get to the natural gas. The Japanese want the natural gas because you can sell it and make boatloads of money. And aside from that, the other arguments really pale in comparison, because in 2012, politics is really about money. It's true of that in the United States. It's true of that in Korea. It's true of that in Japan. It's true around the world. Politicians don't give a crap about the people that they govern. They care about the business. They care about the dollars. But like everything else, ownership is 9/10 of the law. And even though Japan has been trying to take the dispute to the International Justice Court, it's really a moot issue. Korea has a Coast Guard station there. It has people on the island. It occupies the island. Ownership is clearly Korea. So you can make all these historical claims that you want about who the island or islets really belong to. The fact of the matter is, Korea is on the islets. And if Japan really wants to assert a territorial claim on Dokdo, go get it. In the latter portion of the 20th century, the Falklands were a great example of that. It was British territory. It was overrun, and the UK spent a lot of time and money, a lot of manpower, a lot of deaths to get that piece of land back. So, if Japan is really serious about Dokdo, then take it. I'm not an advocate for violence. I'm not an advocate for war. But if you really believe that a piece of land is that vital to your national identity, and you aren't willing to do what's necessary to secure it for yourself, then let it go. If you look at the Japanese dispute with China, they have the same standpoint. They occupy the land. China wants to sequester it for their own land, but Japan is actively occupying the land, the island, and is protecting it. It's the same issue. So there you have it. That's my opinion on Dokdo. This week, before I get to that, this week, the U.S. and Korea are doing joint military exercises, and of course, Kim Jong-un is saying that there will be a holy war against these two countries if anything happens. So it's nothing new. It's the same thing. I put out the U.S. Embassy broadcast saying that on Wednesday at 2 p.m. there's going to be a civil defense drill. That's the same thing happens all the time. Again, nothing's really going to come about this. Of course, I'm pre-recording the podcast, so who knows? But if we're still here, it's the same rhetoric as always. Iced coffee. Fantastic. Let's talk about the DREAM Act in Arizona, going back to politics, since we're on a big politic thing. Obama came out this past summer with the DREAM Act, essentially paving the way for those who have come into the United States illegally to get citizenship. And it kind of ties into the Arizona bill that's, mockingly called the Show Us Your Papers Act, Show Us Your Papers bill law, where if law enforcement personnel in Arizona believe that you are not in the country legally, they can request that you show your passport, your visa, your green card, whatever, and detain you and deport you. It's a tough issue, and as elections come up in the United States, I think a lot of people really don't understand why this is such a hot button issue. A lot of people in the United States are out of work, but they are also unwilling to do the menial jobs that people from developing nations who come into the United States are willing to do. They're willing to take that opportunity, they're willing to take that job and work there. The problem becomes really that you have people coming up across the border. The politically correct word to use now is undocumented, but you're illegal. You're an alien. You're not from that country. You're not there legally. You are illegal. So I hate the terminology undocumented. So you come up, you're an illegal alien. You're working, and a lot of times where this is becoming an issue is that they bring their small children who never know their native land, who grow up in the United States, who go through school, who are now ready to enter college, and they find out or they know that they're illegal and are having a hard time getting into college. Now, Obama and his administration want to work out a solution to make use of their intellectual talents, and I think that's a great idea. If you are an intelligent person, why not go to college? Why not earn a degree? I think there are a lot of things that need to come into play to ensure that, because I know people, a client of mine back in the day when I had my Chinese medical massage business, married a Filipina, and it took him 2 years to get a green card visa for her to come over. 2 years. They were married 2 years, and it took her 2 years to get a visa to be able to live with him in the United States. I know someone who has waited more than 20 years on the immigration list to come to the United States legally. So the argument that's being made that you're rewarding these individuals, these illegal aliens who have come to the United States for bypassing the law, from skipping ahead in line, I think it's a valid argument. They are not in the country legally, and if you reward them in some way, it's a really huge slap in the face to people who are doing the process appropriately. But you also run into the problem, whereas if mom and dad come into the country and have a child within the borders of the United States, that child is a citizen. And while the parents may be illegal, the child is not. And there may be some questions of whether or not the appropriate paperwork has ever been filed to show that that child is a valid U.S. citizen. On the books and legally, they are. So that's a huge problem. It also comes into play a lot of issues regarding at least the schools in Arizona, which are what I'm more familiar with, that because the parents are taking these low-level jobs or working long hours, they need a place to put the kid, so the kid goes to U.S. school, public school. the schools aren't able to ask for documentation as to whether or not they are taxpayers or whether or not they're in the country legally. So they have to go through schools. And then because they don't speak English or their English level is low, lots of time and money is spent to instruct them on how to complete the tasks. But they don't get any support at home, so then the school suffers when you take national tests, and because the school has a bad grade, a quote-unquote bad grade, they lose funding, and then you get this huge problem. It's a huge issue, and I'm not sure what the best solution is. Students who have intellectual aptitude and who want to go to school in the United States in college, if they are actually illegal, I think there should be a process to expedite a student visa. I think that would be one of the best ways. You know, if you're from a Latin American country, you come over to the United States illegally. If you want to go to a U.S. school, okay. You've lived all this time in the United States. You went to a U.S. school. That's where your high school diploma is from. Whatever happened in the past is what happened in the past. You want to work towards your future. And I think the best way to achieve that is really one of two options. Number one, get a student visa for your university, and then have something else down the road to secure a work visa and ultimately citizenship, if that's what your goal is. Or, hey, join the U.S. military. Give that an opportunity to serve the country that you profess to love, and at the back end of that, you have your citizenship. Do it that way. I think that's a kind of cool thing, a kind of interesting way to do it. Everybody wins. I think one of the issues also is that perhaps some of the individuals may be also considered stateless, and by stateless I mean may not have documents supporting citizenship in any country around the world. So, huge issue. I'll be interested to see how that plays out in the U.S. elections as it comes up. Very controversial topics, and really no good solution. So there you have it. One last thing in the news section, and that is my radio gig on TBS EFM. Previously in the podcast, I've always included those broadcasts in the Travel Talk segment of the podcast, and I'm not going to do that anymore. What I've decided to do is do a news segment of the podcast, and dun 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 dun. Yeah, baby. Yeah, get ready for it. I'm going to have those podcasts as a video extra, not a video extra, but as an extra broadcast. So beginning in September, I am going to have a new segment on TBS EFM called QiRanger Around the World. And it's going to focus on some things that I'm very passionate about. And I'll have that as a podcast extra. So it won't be part of this podcast, but if you go to QiRanger.com, you can download the MP3, or you can just log on to iTunes and download it that way. But I'm really really jazzed about it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So that is the news this week, and it was quite big. So shall we move on? Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the Content Rewind. Now, this is the portion of the podcast where I share a little bit about the behind-the-scenes nature of the videos and posts and the different things I create online. So let's gear up and go to Alaska for the Alaskan Zipline Adventure. This was with Alaska Zipline, and it was fantastic. We did this in Juneau, and it was brilliant. My mother, who is 70 years old, and she chastised me for revealing her age on Facebook. But I gotta tell you, if you have a mom and she's 70 and she's ziplining 50 feet above the floor in the lush Alaskan forest, you want people to know. You want people to know that you have the best mom ever. So it was a lot of fun. The entire video was shot with the GoPro, and we had a great time out there. Jesse and Davey were awesome guides, and it was just a lot of fun. If you have the opportunity to ride in Juneau with Alaskan Zipline Adventures, do it. They're fantastic. It was brilliant. The other video from the cruise was, of course, the White Pass and Yukon route over in Skagway. And that was also a joy. I love trains. My father loved trains. I can't even begin to recall how many times I've been on the Silverton Durango route, narrow gauge in Colorado. This was a joy for us. The interesting thing about this video was that I went back and forth between the GoPro, between the HFS 11, but it was so much fun. Most people opted to take the diesel train. We opted to take the steam train, and really, why not? If you're going up one of the most scenic railways in the world, you gotta go steam. You gotta have that. And if you listen to the video, you hear the same the entire video. It's actually a loop that I pulled out from one of the video clips and just laid it underneath the entire thing. But it was so much fun. It was a blast to go on. There weren't that many people, and what we learned on the trip was that since most people take the diesel option, that's what operates every single day, multiple times every single day. But the steam engine only operates twice a week. So we were very lucky to be in Skagway on a day that the train was running, and it was brilliant. Our car was virtually empty. And on the way back, you get up to White Pass, and you do the circle around Fraser inside Canada, and you let the other trains come up, and then you get back and you go back down. But they do a champagne toast. And because our car didn't have a lot of people in it, we got to have a lot of champagne. It was pretty cool. I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. In Portland, we went to the Japanese Garden, which is said to be the the best Japanese garden outside of Japan. And I have to say, it was beautiful. It was really nice. We weren't staying too far from there. I called them up and said, hey, I want to do a story on the Japanese garden. And we took Becky and Tor there, who are our guides in Portland. And we were able to meet with the PR staff, and they gave us a great personalized tour around the gardens. If you're in Portland, really check it out. It's fantastic. Admission's about $10. You also have the Rose Test Garden right there, Washington Park. Beautiful area. Highly, highly recommended. Fantastic stuff. Down in Mesa, the first video I did when I got back was, of course, the Doritos, where I heard about it on... what is the podcast called? It's a how to do. It's a anyway, I can't remember the name of the podcast. How Stuff Works. How Stuff Works. Yes, they did a podcast about Doritos catching fire, and I thought, wow, that's amazing. So I had to try it out, and sure enough, it works. You take a blowtorch, you light it on fire, and poof, it lights up. It is amazing. And no, I didn't damage the cement. We did it at the park specifically so I could cover it up with ice. And was cool. So, and we just used a 99-cent grab bag. It was fantastic. A blog article I did back in the States was about paintball. It was an indoor paintball facility. And if you've never gone paintballing, it's great. It's the first time I've ever done it inside. So the quarters were quite confined, making your rounds fairly limited because it's just really easy to get shot. But it was a blast. It was the first thing we did back in the States, and I wish we had time to do it again. The last video I did was over on the vlog channel about Casa Grande. And again, I love Native American sites. I love historical sites. And even though I'd lived in Arizona for more than 20 years, I had actually never been to Casa Grande. And it was a fantastic site. I had the opportunity to talk with the park ranger there for a while. And it was brilliant. If you ever get a chance, go. The history there is really interesting. And I learned some new things. I thought it was just a trade center. But if you watch the video, I point out two celestial observatory aspects of the Casa Grande, and it was really cool. So there you have it. That is the Content Rewind. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the Quintessential Quartet, a new segment here on the podcast where I'm going to share with you four things that I think you need to know. And this week's topic is going to be about cruising, and that is because I love cruising. I just came off of a cruise and really can't wait to go on another one. So, number one, it's really not about the ship or the line that you take. It is about your destination. Now, I have been on close to a dozen cruises throughout my entire life. I've been on 4 different cruise lines, and I have to say that my experiences on all of them have roughly been the same. They are all 5-star floating hotels. They all have fitness facilities. They all participate in the same shore excursions. They all have great food. They all have the same kind of shows. There really is very little difference between, say, between cruise line A and cruise line B. Now, if you do pay more money for a higher tier cruise, maybe your amenities will be nicer, maybe the fixtures will be nicer, maybe you have a better type of food, but in reality, there's not going to be a lot of difference. So pick your destination. Now, I've gone in the Caribbean, both the Eastern and the Western. I've done the Inside Passage. I've done the northbound route in Alaska. And personally, I like warmer routes better than, say, the Alaskan routes. That's not to say that Alaskan cruises are not spectacular, but I like to be outdoors, and you can do more outdoor activities on a Caribbean cruise, or in some cases, a Mexican Riviera cruise. So it's about where you go, not necessarily what ship or line you're on. Number 2, there's food. There's a lot of food. It's all you can eat all the time. So don't fret about gaining weight. Chances are you will gain weight. Now, there is a gym, and I think one of the funny things about the gym on a cruise ship is at the very beginning of the cruise, everyone is at the gym. As soon as the doors open, people start rolling in. About 2 days later, people are eating and having a good time and staying out and drinking and just having a vacation. And they realize that I don't want to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go to the gym. So if you do want to try and minimize your weight gain and exercise, you have the opportunity. But really just realize that you're there, you're going to have fun, you're going to be eating a lot of food. If you're going to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, they're multi-course meals. So there's usually a starter, an entree, and then a dessert, and bread, and just lots of different things for you to eat. So be ready for it. Be ready for it, because you will probably gain weight, and don't stress about it. Work it off after your vacation. Number 3, drink up and participate. Yes, a lot of people freak out about having to pay for alcoholic beverages on a cruise, and I want to say don't. The bar prices for alcohol really aren't that any different than what you'd pay at a bar where you're from. And in some cases where you're from, maybe the bar prices are extremely high, as they are here in Korea. But on a cruise ship, really not that out of sight for what you'd pay. So a bar purchase on a cruise ship is pretty much the bar price you'd pay at your local establishment. And it's a lot of fun. You sit back, have a cocktail, chill out with your friends. It's a great time. Cruise ships also have a lot of different activities, and I really encourage everyone, if you're going on a cruise, to participate in them. This past cruise, we cruised with Royal Caribbean, and every night we would find some activity, whether it be a trivia contest, whether it be one of their signature games, and my family would relish in the opportunity to just really get in there and have fun with it. So really, the best way to have a great cruise is to go to a place that you want to experience, to take advantage of the shore excursions, and to participate in the shipboard activities. My brothers and I, to say, very happy about this. Royal Caribbean has a game called The Quest. It's kind of an unconventional scavenger hunt. and we took first place. You had to say, show people the crazy side of you, and we did that rather well. The other thing we came in first place with, there was a classic television show trivia contest, and my brothers and I dominated with that as well. So it was a lot of fun. Every night we would go down to the Schooner Bar and sing karaoke, and it was just a lot of fun. And that's more so for what makes a cruise special for me, is participating in those types of activities rather than just focusing on the excursion. So a lot of fun. And the last thing I want to say, the number 4 item for the Quintessential Quartet, is to say thank you. Now, of course, as you're on a cruise ship, it's a 5-star facility. People are just amazing on there. The level of service that you experience on a cruise is absolutely amazing. And a lot of times the servers, your cabin attendants are from what many consider developing nations. The 2 most common would be Indonesia and the Philippines. So being able to say thank you to them is important. And you can always just say thank you in English, but taking the extra time to say thank you in their native language really endears you toward them and creates a bond. And you develop this relationship with those that are taking care of your cabin, that are taking care of your food, and it just creates a lot of time. So to say thank you in Filipino, Tagalog, is salamat, and you add po at the end for sir or madam, a sign of respect. So salamat po, and that is thank you in Tagalog. And it's a great way to show respect, to show that you really are thankful for the job that they're doing. And it's really cool. If your server or your cabin attendant is from Indonesia, actually ran into a lot of security personnel this last cruise that were from Indonesia. The way to say thank you in Bahasa Indonesia is terima kasih. And that's thank you. And they really appreciate that. It's just the same way that when I'm out in Korea and someone helps me, I always say 감사합니다 and say thank you in Korean versus just saying thank you in English. So there you have it. 4 things that will help your cruising experience even more. It is time to set course for adventure, the second new segment of the podcast. And this time we are going out to one of my favorite places in the United States, Flagstaff, Arizona, where I went to college, where I earned my bachelor's and my master's. Now, if you've never been to Flagstaff, let me tell you a little bit about the town. It is located in what is commonly called as Northern Arizona, and with a population of about 60,000. It was named after the ponderosa pine tree that served as the flagpole when Flagstaff was first settled in about 1876. It lies squarely on the Colorado Plateau and is on the western edge of the largest ponderosa pine forest in the United States. Just outside the central city proper is Mount Humphreys, which is the tallest peak in Arizona, coming in at a whopping 12,633 feet. And Flagstaff, like Korea, is home to all 4 seasons and includes one of the state's major ski areas. And it provides a stark contrast to the hot desert of Phoenix, which is just a few hours short south, which I think is also quite funny because while I was teaching at NAU, the Northern Arizona University, where I earned my degrees, serving on staff there, I actually had a student from Europe specifically choose NAU, Northern Arizona University, because she wanted to get away from the snow in her homeland. Didn't read the literature about the college, just saw the Arizona portion of it. And, of course, Flagstaff, 7,000 feet, ski area. We get lots of snow. In fact, for a good comparison, if you're in the Seoul area, winters in Flagstaff are just like winters in Seoul, except they have a lot more snow. Flagstaff is also about 85 miles south of the south rim of the Grand Canyon and is divided largely into an east and west side. The west side being the campus side, the east side being more of the business district side, the country club area where the mall is. To get to Flagstaff, you can take either I-40, which was part of historic Route 66. It's also serviced by I-17. You can take the Amtrak train through Flagstaff. It stops off at the Convention Visitors Bureau as the main depot and stays for quite a long time. When I was going to school there, I have very fond memories of the train stopping at the depot and blocking large intersections for up to a half hour as people were getting on and off and as they were fueling the train. It's a really huge pain in the butt. The way that the city is laid out is that the train tracks bifurcate Route 66 from another portion of town. So if you needed to get across the tracks, you really had to go really out far and go through this underpass under the tracks to get to the town. They've since built an overpass to allow people to get on either side of the town over the tracks. So if the train is there, because it's also a major freight route, and there's just trains every 10-15 minutes going through town. It's traffic. When the trains come, it's a problem. Pulliam Airport services regional flights mainly to Phoenix, but flying in is quite expensive. There are some local buses, but if you really want to get around, you need a bike or rent a scooter or preferably a car, because there are some great destinations not too far away, which I'll get to in just a minute. If you're going there, you have a lot of choices of where you can stay. There are a lot of hostels as well as hotels, ranging from 1-star all the way up to 5-star. Some of the key hotels in the area are the Monta Vista, which I have stayed at. I stayed in the Bon Jovi room. The Hotel Monta Vista was originally built in 1926 under a citizen's subscription legislation, and it soon became the place to stay for transcontinental visitors to Flagstaff and people who were just wanted to get out and stay someplace in Flagstaff. It offered an oasis of lush surroundings and a chance to rub shoulders with the local and national elite. It's located 1 block north of Route 66 and has been home to thousands of adventurous and colorful characters, all the way from bank robbers to leading Hollywood stars. And it's really, really cool. There's actually a great bar in it, and it is one of the iconic centerpieces of downtown Flagstaff. I don't think that you can actually see it in the Forrest Gump clip of when he's running through Flagstaff, but there's a lot of great restaurants in historic downtown Flagstaff, and it's really, really cool. 2 great hostels in the area, the Grand Canyon Hostel and the Dubois Hostels. They're owned by the same company, but they're right downtown. They're very affordable. They have dormitories and private rooms available if you'd like that, if you're traveling with a partner. Also on the east side, you have Little America, which is set in a 500-acre ponderosa pine forest and is, a little bit of a heaven for those that want to escape the city life. It's very nice, lots of natural beauty, and it's also a truck stop. So if you're just passing through, it's a great place to refuel, to eat, and move on. Across the street, you have Black Bart's, which I'll talk about in just a minute, and they have a trailer park there. So if you're going in an RV, that's a great place to stop as well. Some things to do in the area, of course, the Grand Canyon, about an hour and a half away. It's one of the natural 7 wonders of the world. It's very easy to do a day trip there and back. In fact, while I was attending college, I would go there 3-4 times a year. It was very common for me to wake up on a weekend morning, drive up to the Grand Canyon, spend all day there, have a great time, and then after sunset, come on back. Just east of Flagstaff is Walnut Canyon National Monument. It's really beautiful. A lot of cliff dwellings, about 300-400 feet up from the canyon floor. Breathtaking. It's not a monument I would recommend if you're afraid of heights, because getting there is not a problem. Going down to the actual ruins, that's the problem. There's 186 steps going down from the visitor center all the way down to where you have to across this narrow bridge. It's a natural land bridge about 3 feet wide, sheer drops on either side. And then you can walk around what's called the island and see the ruins. But if you don't want to do that, there's plenty you can see on top. Looking into the canyon, there's over 300 different cliff dwellings in this national monument. Wupatki National Monument is also just outside. It shares the same grounds as Sunset Crater, allowing both parks to share the same resources, one entrance fee, which is also great. And if you plan your day out smartly, you can actually leave Flagstaff, head up through the east side, go in through Sunset Crater, experience that park, then go through all of Wupatki National Monument, see all those Native American Pueblo dwellings, which are amazing. And then you can head to the Grand Canyon over on the east entrance. Now, one of the things I really love about Wupatki is that there's a cave structure underneath it, and it draws in and blows out air. And I have very vivid memories of my youth going to this park and having a jacket. And as the cold air was rushing out the blowhole, filling up my jacket, and me doing my best rendition of the Incredible Hulk. Sunset Crater was, of course, used during the Apollo missions to help train astronauts identify land features and cinder cones and so forth. If you watch From the Earth to the Moon, they feature that in there as well. It's a great park, a lot of different lava flows, really interesting from a geological perspective. So definitely check that out. Meteor Crater, 35 miles east of Flagstaff, where they practice walking on the moon. It's kind of cool. You pull into it. It's a huge crater, and you can actually look down into it. You can see some of the relics that are down there. Very, very windy though. I've been there twice, and just the amount of wind up on the rim is just unbelievable. And of course, a lot of great day hikes in the area. A few miles south, you have Sedona, which is famous for its red rocks, as well as Oak Creek. The Red Rock Highway is one of the 15 most scenic roadways in the world. Also in Flagstaff, you have the Museum of Northern Arizona, which has great insight and great exhibits about Native Americans from the Colorado Plateau. Fantastic. If you go up in the wintertime, you have the Snow Bowl, which is great for hiking in the summer. You can go all the way up to Humphreys Peak, or you can have some great skiing. The Museum Club along Route 66 is a very cool country bar. Definitely worth checking out. The USGS has an office in Flagstaff. Now, what many people don't know is that the USGS office in Flagstaff is actually the clearinghouse for a lot of NASA images, a lot of NASA's footage, a lot of NASA movies. So as Mars Curiosity is out there right now on Mars, the public images that are released are all going through Flagstaff. Bet you didn't know that. I've been there. I have pictures of Mars from USGS. Pretty cool. The best place, I think, to eat in Flagstaff for breakfast is, of course, The Place, Mike and Rhonda's. And I got to tell you, their Hungry Man breakfast special, which used to be around $5-6, was amazing. 3 eggs, a half a plate of hash browns, 3 biscuits with gravy, 3 things of sausage, 3 patties of sausage, 3 links of sausage, 3 strips of bacon. Oh, heaven. I also often got their cinnamon roll, which used to be about, I would say about almost 9-10 inches in diameter, and must have weighed like 3 pounds. It's fantastic. I mentioned Black Bart's before. You can, of course, stay there with your mobile home. I think there's some camping grounds on it. But what it's really famous for, it's an old steakhouse. They used to do some vaudevillian melodrama plays there too. But it employs singers from NAU's choral department. So you have singing waiters. And the steaks really aren't the best in the world. And you can certainly find cheaper steaks in town. But you are working with servers who are students, you're working with servers who are trying to perfect their singing craft. So while you're having your meal, you are also entertained with some great singers, and it's a very cool place to go. The Little America, which I talked about as a place to stay, also has a great buffet, highly worth that checking out. On the west side of Flagstaff, you have the Szechuan Chinese food lunch buffet. Again, unbelievable. So much food. It used to be about $7, $8. It may have gone up a little bit in price, but an impressive array of delicious Chinese food. I'm getting so hungry right now. Just fantastic stuff. If you love coffee, like you should, let's just face it, coffee, nectar of the gods. Macy's Coffee Shop in downtown Flagstaff. It's a European-themed icon that is family-owned, and which is really cool about the place is that they have chess night. I mean, how cool is that? You go there, have your coffee. They even have a window side ordering place now, but they have chess night. That's cool for a cafe. Right across the street from that is, of course, Beaver Street Brewery, one of the first microbreweries in town. And while the food isn't necessarily the best, you certainly have some fine craft beers there. Some of the unique aspects of the city. It's very much still a small town, even though there's about 60,000 people in it. There's very much a small town knit community there, and has that homey feeling. One of the things I really loved about living in Flagstaff, because I lived there for 9 years while I went to university, was that in the fall and winter, as temperature dropped, people still used wood-burning stoves. So you go outside and you smell that cedar, you smell that pine that is being used to create the heat to keep the residents warm in such a chilly environment. And the smoke that permeates the air is, every time I smell that, I just really go back in time and just have a great time. So it's fantastic time. The residents really do want to keep that kind of environment. So a lot of times you'll see stickers saying don't PHXFLG, meaning don't Phoenix flag, don't make it a large environment, don't make it an urban sprawling block of land. So it's a lot of time during college semesters, things really expand. But even in the near decade I was there, a lot of things changed. So it's a really cool place. And even if Flagstaff isn't your final destination, it's a great place to base your travels out of northern Arizona. It was a lot of fun. I went to a lot of cool places there. Monument Valley is not too far from there. You have Mesa Verde National Park, not too far from there. Las Vegas, 4 hours away. Really, really cool things to do in and around the region. So there you have it. Set course for adventure, Flagstaff, Arizona. Ladies and gentlemen, that will just about do it for this week's podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed the Quintessential Quartet about cruising. I'd love to know your thoughts about cruising. So if you have any thoughts, any suggestions, any memories, be sure to drop a comment or send me a message. If you have ever been to Flagstaff, share your experiences with me. I would love to hear about it. Until then, that'll be it for this week. If you have feedback, please drop a comment down below or send me a message at podcast@QiRanger.com. You can, of course, follow me on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram by just looking for QiRanger. Until next time, be awesome, and I will see you soon.